The cold metal chair made no sound as Minji shifted her weight. Her hands were locked in energy cuffs that glowed blue against her dark jacket. The room had no windows and only one door. White walls surrounded her on all sides. She looked calm, like she was waiting for a bus instead of sitting in the most secure detention center in this part of the galaxy. Commander Tae-hyun walked into the room. His forearms moved with military precision as he set down a thick file on the metal table. His species was known for being excellent interrogators. Their multiple eyes could catch the smallest changes in body language. Their natural ability to read heat patterns made lying almost impossible. But when he looked at the human woman across from him, he felt something strange. She was not nervous. She was not afraid. She was almost amused. "Do you know where you are?" he asked in perfect standard Galactic. His voice was deep and carried the authority of someone who had broken many prisoners before her. Minji looked around the room slowly. Her eyes took in every corner and every surface. She noticed things that most people would miss. The slight wear marks on the floor showed where other chairs had been placed. The ventilation grate was newer than the rest of the room. The door handle had been replaced recently. Kepler 7 Station, Level 12, Detention Block C, Room 7 based on the sound echo when you walked in. Tae-hyun felt his confidence shake a little. Prisoners were not supposed to know details like that. He opened the file and spread out several photographs. 3 days ago, you infiltrated the Vorthan military compound on Rigel 4. This facility was protected by the best security in their fleet. Energy barriers, motion sensors, heat detection, guard rotations every 15 minutes. Yet somehow you walked in and walked out with 3 human prisoners. "Did I?" Minji said. Her tone suggested she might be asking about the weather. "The security footage shows a human female matching your description. She disabled their entire planetary defense grid from the inside. She accessed systems that should have been impossible to reach. She moved through areas that had no recorded entry points." Tae-hyun leaned forward. "But here is what interests me most. You did all of this without killing a single guard, without firing a weapon, without leaving any evidence except the 3 empty cells." Minji said nothing. She studied the photographs like she was reading a menu at a restaurant. "We ran your identity through every database in known space: Earth military records, colonial defense forces, intelligence agencies, mercenary guilds. Nothing. You do not exist in any official capacity." Tae-hyun pulled out another photograph. This one showed a close-up of her jacket. A small silver pin was visible on the collar. It showed Earth surrounded by 7 stars. "But this symbol, this we found very interesting." For the first time, Minji showed a reaction. Her eyes focused on the photograph, and something changed in her expression. Not fear, not worry, something else. Something that made Tae-hyun wish he had more guards in the room. "You would not understand what that means," she said quietly. "Try me." Minji leaned back in her chair. The energy cuffs made a soft, humming sound. "How many species are in the Galactic Council now?" 47. "How many of those species have had their homeworlds threatened by extinction-level events in the past century?" 31. "How many of those threats just mysteriously disappeared before anyone could officially respond to them?" Tae-hyun felt cold despite the warm air in the room. "What are you suggesting?" "I am not suggesting anything. I am stating facts. The Corvin plague that was going to wipe out 12 billion people on Theta Prime, gone overnight. The rogue AI that had taken control of the Zephyrian defense network and was preparing to launch their nuclear arsenal at their own cities. Shut down by someone who was never identified. The asteroid that was on a collision course with New Geneva. Somehow it just changed direction." Minji smiled, but there was no warmth in it. 47 separate incidents. Billions of lives saved. No official credit ever claimed. What does this have to do with your pin? Everything. Tae-hyun looked at the file again. The mission reports made no sense from a tactical standpoint. The Vorthan compound was designed to be impenetrable. Their security systems were created by the best military engineers in 3 sectors. Yet this woman had walked through their defenses like they were not there. More importantly, she had done it without causing any permanent damage. The guards she had encountered were found unconscious but unharmed. The systems she had accessed were shut down temporarily, but not destroyed. Even the cells where the prisoners had been held showed no signs of forced entry. The 3 humans you extracted, they were not random prisoners, were they? No. They were intelligence assets, deep cover operatives who had been feeding information to Earth for over 2 years. Were they? Their capture compromised an entire network of human agents across Vorthon space. If they had been interrogated using Vorthon methods, they would have revealed everything. Names, locations, mission parameters. It would have been the largest intelligence disaster in human history. Minji looked at him with something that might have been approval. You are smarter than most of your colleagues, so you are admitting that you conducted an unauthorized rescue operation in violation of 17 different treaties. I am not admitting anything. I am simply sitting here having a conversation with you. Tae-hyun stood up and began pacing. His 4 arms moved in patterns that showed his frustration. Do you understand the position you have put us in? Kepler 7 is a neutral station. We maintain peace between dozens of species by staying out of their conflicts. When someone commits an act of war against a council member from our territory, it makes us look weak. Act of war. That is an interesting way to describe rescuing prisoners who were being tortured in violation of the Geneva Accords. The Vorthons claim they were following proper interrogation procedures. The Vorthons claim many things. Most of them are lies. Through the one-way observation window, 3 other officers watched the interrogation. They belonged to different species, but they all wore the same confused expression. None of them had ever seen a prisoner who acted like this. She was not defiant in the way that most criminals were. She was not trying to convince them of her innocence. She was not making demands or threats. She was simply existing in the room, like she had chosen to be there. There is something else, Tae-hyun said. He pulled out a data pad and showed her a series of energy readings. These were taken from the Vorthon compound during your infiltration. Do you know what they show? Minji glanced at the readings. I would guess they show normal background energy levels. Exactly. No weapon discharges, no explosive residue, no electromagnetic pulse signatures, no ion trail from stealth technology. According to every sensor in that facility, nothing unusual happened that night. Yet somehow their most secure installation was completely compromised by a single person. Maybe their sensors are not as good as they think. Or maybe whoever did this knows technology that we do not understand. The door to the interrogation room opened. A new figure entered. This one was human. Middle-aged with gray hair and the kind of face that suggested he had seen many difficult things. He wore the uniform of Earth Intelligence Services with the rank insignia of a senior analyst. Commander Tae-hyun, I am Agent Ki-won. I apologize for the interruption, but I need to speak with your prisoner. Tae-hyun looked annoyed. This interrogation is not finished. Actually, it is. Ki-won sat down across from Minji. For a moment, they looked at each other without speaking. Then he smiled. Hello, Minji. It has been a long time. Not long enough, she replied. But there was warmth in her voice now. Tae-hyun realized that something had just changed in the room. The dynamic had shifted in a way he did not understand. These 2 humans knew each other. More than that, they respected each other. And suddenly he felt like he was no longer in control of his own interrogation. Dr. Junho was having a quiet morning in his office when the call came through. His desk was covered with old military records and historical documents. As Earth's leading expert on military honors and decorations, he spent most of his time researching medals and ribbons that most people had forgotten. The work was peaceful and rarely urgent. That was why the emergency alert from Galactic Command made him jump. Dr. Junho. This is Admiral Hassan from GC Intelligence. We need your expertise immediately. The holographic display showed a photograph of a small silver pin. Earth surrounded by 7 stars. The moment Junho saw it, his coffee mug slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor. Hot liquid spread across his research papers, but he did not notice. His eyes were fixed on the image with an expression of pure shock. "Where did you get this?" he whispered. "A human prisoner on Kepler 7 station. She was wearing it during an unauthorized military operation. We need to know what it represents." Junho's hands were shaking as he reached for his personal files. These were documents that he kept separate from his official research. Records that were classified at levels so high that most government officials did not know they existed. "Admiral, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. How many people have access to this image?" "Just my immediate staff. Why?" "Because if the wrong people see this photograph, it could start a panic that would reach every corner of human space." The connection went silent for a moment. "Doctor, what exactly are we dealing with here?" Junho pulled up a file on his personal computer. The header read, "7 stars, eyes only. Historical Archive." He had been one of only 3 people authorized to compile this information. The other 2 were dead. "The 7 stars is not an official military decoration. It cannot be earned through normal channels. It cannot be requested or recommended. 4. It exists outside the entire structure of Earth's armed forces. Then what is it? It is a promise. On a mining station in the Outer Rim, a man named Hayok was repairing a damaged atmospheric processor when the news alert came through his personal communicator. Like most miners, he kept the device tuned to several information networks. News from home was often the only thing that made the long shifts bearable. But when he saw the headline, his wrench clattered to the floor. "Human prisoner holds unknown. Military honor." The attached image showed the 7 stars pin. Hyok stood perfectly still for several minutes. Then he walked to his locker and began pulling out equipment that had been hidden behind his work clothes. Items that definitely did not belong on a mining station. A communication array that could reach any point in known space. Identity documents, with names he had not used in 20 years. And a small silver pin identical to the one in the photograph. 3 hours later, he was on a transport ship heading for Kepler 7. Captain Soman was running a routine cargo delivery between the inner colonies when her ship's computer flagged an urgent message. She was in the middle of a delicate docking procedure with a space station, but she told her crew to take over. The message was coded using frequencies that civilian ships were not supposed to have access to. The content was simple: a single image and a location. Kepler 7 station. Soman looked at the 7 stars pin for a long time. Then she called her navigator. "Change course. Full speed." "Captain, that will put us 3 days behind schedule. The cargo owners will not be happy." "The cargo owners can file a complaint." On a small agricultural world called Haven, a man named Do-hyun was working in his fields when his personal communicator buzzed. He had been living on Haven for 15 years. His neighbors knew him as a quiet farmer who grew the best vegetables in the sector. They had no idea that the equipment in his barn could level a small city, or that the crops he grew were a perfect cover for surveillance operations that monitored half the galaxy. The message was brief. One of the 7 was in trouble. Do-hyun put down his tools and walked to his house. In his bedroom closet behind a false wall was a travel bag that had been packed for 15 years. Next to it was a case containing weapons and equipment that officially did not exist. He picked up both items and walked to his small personal shuttle. His neighbors would find a note explaining that he had to leave on family business. They would never see him again. Back on Earth, Dr. Junho was trying to explain something that had no official explanation. The 7 stars represents the highest possible recognition for service to humanity. But it is not awarded for single acts of heroism. It is not given for completing missions or winning battles. It is earned by individuals who have prevented disasters so catastrophic that their success cannot be publicly acknowledged. What kind of disasters? The kind that would have ended civilizations. Junho pulled up another file. This one contained incident reports that read like science fiction. 43 years ago, the Centauri colonies were facing complete economic collapse. Food riots, government failures, civil war was inevitable and would have killed millions of people. Then overnight, every major problem disappeared. Food shipments arrived from unknown sources. Financial markets stabilized through trades that could not be traced. Key political leaders found themselves in situations where cooperation was their only option. Are you suggesting that someone manipulated an entire colonial government? I am saying that someone prevented a war that would have been remembered as one of the worst tragedies in human history. No official military operation was authorized. No intelligence agency claimed responsibility. But somewhere in Earth's archives, there is a record of one person being awarded the 7 stars pin. Admiral Hassan felt like he was falling down a rabbit hole that had no bottom. How many people have earned this recognition? Currently, there are 7 people alive who wear the pin. There have been others, but they died in service or from old age. Each of them has saved not just lives, but entire worlds or civilizations. They operate independently of all military and intelligence structures. They report to no one. They follow no orders except their own judgment. That sounds incredibly dangerous. It is, but it is also incredibly effective. On Kepler 7 station, the human population was unusually active. Ships were arriving from all over human space. The docking requests were normal. Routine maintenance, shore leave, commercial business. But Station Security Chief Wubin was starting to notice patterns. The humans arriving were not typical travelers. They moved differently. They watched their surroundings more carefully. They asked questions about station layout and security procedures. Most concerning was their behavior in groups. Humans were normally social creatures who gathered in bars and restaurants. But these new arrivals sat alone. They made brief eye contact with each other, but did not approach. It was like they were all waiting for something. Wubin had seen this pattern once before, during his 20 years of station security. It had been during a crisis involving smuggled weapons and corrupt officials. The situation had been resolved quickly and quietly by people who were never officially identified. No arrests were made. No trials were held. The problem simply stopped existing. He made a note in his security log. Increased human activity. Recommend elevated watch status. Dr. Junho was still trying to make Admiral Hassan understand. The 7 stars is not just a recognition of past service. It is a commitment to future action. When someone wears that pin, they are making a promise that they will respond to certain types of emergencies regardless of official orders or political considerations. What types of emergencies? Anything that threatens human survival or violates the basic principles that Earth claims to represent. They are our ultimate contingency plan for situations where normal military and diplomatic responses are insufficient. And you think the woman on Kepler 7 is one of these people? I know she is. The pin cannot be faked. The materials are manufactured using processes that are classified beyond top secret. More importantly, the people who wear them are selected through criteria that most government officials do not even know exist. Admiral Hassan looked at the photograph again. The woman appeared to be completely ordinary, middle-aged, average height. Nothing about her suggested that she was capable of extraordinary actions. She does not look dangerous. That is exactly what makes her so dangerous. The most effective people are often the ones who look like they belong in the background, the eye. Communication ended, but Dr. Junho continued working. He had calls to make and files to review. The 7 stars had not been activated as a group for over 20 years. If they were responding to this situation, it meant something significant was about to happen, something that would probably never appear in any official records. He pulled. up a list of names and current locations. Most of the information was classified, but he had access through his research position. The list showed 7 names scattered across known space, but as he watched the data updated in real time, 6 of the 7 were now showing movement vectors toward the same destination, Kepler-7 Station. Admiral Ji-won had been commanding Kepler-7 Station for 12 years. Her species was known for attention to detail and pattern recognition. These skills had made her one of the most effective administrators in the neutral zone. She noticed everything, from unusual energy readings to changes in crew behavior. That was why the current situation made her uncomfortable in ways she could not explain. The traffic control reports showed normal activity, ships requesting docking permission, routine maintenance schedules, standard commercial operations. But when she looked at the actual vessel registrations, something felt wrong. Too many ships were arriving from different sectors of human space. Too many requests were being submitted at the same time. Most concerning was that these ships were not following typical travel patterns. Her communications officer, Nari, approached with another batch of docking requests. "Admiral, we have 17 more ships requesting permission to dock, all human registered, all claiming routine business." Ji-won studied the list. The ships came from mining colonies, agricultural worlds, and trading posts scattered across dozens of star systems. Under normal circumstances, these vessels would have no reason to be in the same sector at the same time. "Run background checks on all the registration codes. I want to know who owns these ships and what their normal operating patterns look like." "Yes, Admiral." On the civilian levels of the station, Minho was having the worst day of his career as human liaison officer. His job was to help human visitors navigate station regulations and cultural differences. Usually this meant explaining why certain areas were restricted or helping solve minor disputes over business transactions. Today felt completely different. The humans arriving on recent ships were polite and followed all the rules. They paid their docking fees and submitted their identification documents without complaint, but there was something about them that made other species nervous. They moved with purpose even when they appeared to be wandering around. They asked innocent questions about station layout that seemed to have deeper meaning. Most unsettling was how they looked at each other without speaking, yet seemed to be communicating anyway. "Minho." The voice belonged to Station Security Chief Wubin. His expression showed the kind of worry that came from years of experience with dangerous situations. "We need to talk." They found a quiet corner in one of the maintenance areas. Wubin pulled out a data pad showing security footage from various parts of the station. "Look at this. Camera 7 in the main docking bay. 3 humans arrive on different ships within 2 hours of each other. They do not speak. They do not make eye contact, but watch their movements." The footage showed each person pausing at the same information terminal. Each person took the same route through the commercial district. Each person stopped at the same observation deck overlooking the detention levels. They are mapping the station, all of them, without appearing to coordinate their activities. Minho felt cold. "How many humans are currently on the station?" 47 as of 2 hours ago. All arrivals within the past 3 days, all claiming unrelated business. That is not a coincidence. No, it is not. In the detention center, Commander, Taehyun was discovering that his interrogation had become much more complicated. Agent Ki-won had taken over the questioning, but his methods were completely different. Instead of trying to break the prisoner, he seemed to be having a casual conversation with an old friend. "The mission to Rigel 4 was clean," Ki-won said. "No unnecessary casualties, no permanent damage to their systems. The prisoners were extracted without compromising any ongoing operations. Very professional work." Minji shrugged. "I have no idea what you are talking about." "Of course you do not. Just like you had no idea about the situation on Vega Prime last year, or the incident at the Tau Ceti research station, or the mysterious resolution of the hostage crisis on New Seoul. You seem to know a lot about things that never happened." Taehyun watched this exchange with growing frustration. These two humans were talking in code about events that he had never heard of. More importantly, they were treating the interrogation like it was a routine meeting between colleagues. Agent Kiwan, I need to remind you that this woman is accused of violating several interplanetary treaties. Actually, Commander, she is not accused of anything. The Vorthons have not filed formal charges. They claim that their facility was breached, but they cannot prove who did it. Their security footage shows nothing unusual. Their sensor logs indicate normal activity. As far as any court would be concerned, this woman was never there. But we know she was involved. Do we? All we know is that she was found wearing a pin that most people have never seen before. That is hardly evidence of criminal activity. Through the observation window, other officers were having heated discussions about jurisdiction and legal procedures. The situation had become a diplomatic nightmare. Detaining a human citizen without charges would create problems with Earth government. But releasing someone who might have committed an act of war would create problems with the Vorthons. There is another issue, Kiwan continued. The prisoner has not actually been charged with anything. She has not requested legal representation. She has not demanded contact with Earth authorities. She is sitting in this room by choice. Taehyun looked at Minji. Is that true? Are you here voluntarily? I am here because this is where I need to be right now. What does that mean? It means that sometimes the best place to solve a problem is from the inside. Before Taehyun could ask what problem she was referring to, his communicator buzzed with an urgent message. Station Command was requesting his immediate presence for a security briefing. He looked at Agent Kiwan. Do not let her leave this room. She is not going anywhere, Commander. Are you Minji? Not yet. Admiral Ji-won was studying traffic patterns on the main display when her staff reported the results of their investigation. The news was disturbing. Admiral, the background checks are showing some unusual patterns. Many of these ships are registered to individuals with very limited personal histories. Some have identification documents that appear legitimate but cannot be verified through normal channels. What does that suggest? Either we are dealing with very sophisticated identity fraud, or these people have backgrounds that are classified beyond our access level. Communications Officer Nari approached with another report. Admiral, I have been monitoring human communication frequencies. The traffic volume has increased by 300% in the past 6 hours. Most of the messages are using civilian channels, but they are encrypted with military-grade algorithms. Can you decode them? No, Admiral. The encryption is more advanced than anything in our database. Ji-won made a decision that she hoped she would not regret. Send a message to Earth Intelligence Services. Tell them we have a situation developing that may require their attention. Include all our findings about the unusual ship arrivals and communication activity. On the civilian levels, station security was discovering that their normal procedures were not working as well as usual. Routine security sweeps were finding nothing suspicious, but the feeling of tension was growing stronger. Human visitors were following all the rules, but they were doing it in ways that suggested they knew exactly where the boundaries were. Security Officer Yuna was reviewing footage from the commercial district when she noticed something strange. Chief Wubin, look at this. Camera 12 in the main plaza. Do you see anything unusual? Wubin studied the image. It showed dozens of beings from various species going about their normal business. Shopping, eating, meeting friends. I see normal. Civilian activity. Look at the humans specifically. Count them. Wubin looked more carefully. There were humans scattered throughout the plaza, but they were positioned in a way that gave them clear sight lines to all the major access points. Without appearing to coordinate, they had created an observation network that covered the entire area. They are watching everything, and they are doing it so naturally that most people do not even notice. In her cell, Minji was having what appeared to be a normal conversation with Agent Kiwan, but Commander Tae-hyun was beginning to realize that nothing about this situation was normal. The woman showed no signs of stress or concern, despite being detained in a high-security facility. The human intelligence officer was treating the interrogation like a social visit. Most disturbing was the growing sense that these people knew something that he did not. "Minji, I have a question that I need you to answer honestly," Kiwan said. "How long do we have?" "Not long. The situation is developing faster than expected." "What situation?" Taehyun demanded. They both looked at him with expressions that suggested they had forgotten he was in the room. "Commander," Kiwan said carefully, "what do you know about preventive security operations?" "Nothing. What are you talking about?" "Sometimes the best way to stop a disaster is to be in position before it happens. Sometimes that requires people to put themselves in situations that look suspicious to outside observers." Taehyun felt like he was missing crucial information. "Are you suggesting that she allowed herself to be captured?" "I am not suggesting anything. I am simply pointing out that the most effective security operations are the ones that nobody recognizes as security operations." Nari had been working communications on Kepler-7 station for 8 years. Her species had natural abilities that made them excellent at detecting patterns in electronic signals. She could identify unusual transmission frequencies and decode basic encryption without using computer assistance. But the communications traffic she was monitoring now was unlike anything she had encountered before. "Admiral Ji-won, please come to communications immediately," she called over the internal system. When the Admiral arrived, Nari showed her a display covered with signal analysis charts. "I have been tracking the encrypted human transmissions for the past 12 hours. The traffic patterns are very strange. Most of the messages are extremely short, just a few seconds long, but they are being sent on frequencies that civilian equipment should not be able to access." "What kind of frequencies?" "Military, command channels, deep space navigation beacons, emergency rescue networks. It is like they have access to communication systems from every major organization in known space." Admiral Ji-won studied the data. The message traffic was coming from all over the station, but it was being coordinated in ways that suggested central planning. "Can you determine what they are communicating about?" "The encryption is too advanced for our systems. But I can tell you something interesting about the timing. Every message is being sent exactly 17 minutes after the previous one. This has been consistent for over 6 hours. That suggests they are reporting status updates on a regular schedule, or they are counting down to something. On the civilian levels, Wubin was discovering that running a small shop on a space station had given him unusual insights into human behavior. His customers were mostly regular travelers who bought basic supplies and asked simple questions about local services. But the humans who had arrived in recent days were different. They bought very specific items and asked very specific questions. "Wubin, I need 50 meters of optical cable rated for deep space operations," said a human woman who had introduced herself as a maintenance engineer. "I also need a portable power supply that can operate without connecting to station systems," said a human man who claimed to be a research scientist. "Do you have any medical supplies that work on multiple species?" asked another human who said she was a tourist. Individually, these requests seemed normal. But when Wubin looked at all the purchases together, they created a picture of people preparing for some kind of emergency operation. The optical cable could be used to create independent communication networks. The portable power supplies could keep critical equipment running during system failures. The medical supplies suggested they were expecting casualties. He made detailed notes about every transaction and forwarded them to station security. In the security office, Chief Jae-hoon was trying to understand a situation that made no sense according to normal criminal behavior. The humans on the station were not hiding their activities. They were following all regulations and cooperating with all requests for identification and documentation. But they were doing everything in ways that created maximum coverage of critical station systems. "Look at this pattern," he told his assistant while pointing to a station map. "The humans who arrived yesterday have quarters scattered throughout the residential areas. But if you draw lines connecting their locations, you get perfect sight lines to all major intersections, power distribution centers, and communication relays. Are you suggesting they are conducting surveillance? I am saying they have positioned themselves to monitor or control every important system on this station without appearing to coordinate their activities. His assistant studied the map more carefully. Chief, there is something else. The humans who arrived today have taken quarters that fill in the gaps from yesterday's pattern. If this continues for another day, they will have coverage of literally everything. Send a priority message to Admiral Jiwon. Tell her we may have a problem that is bigger than we realized. Commander Taehyun was beginning to understand that his interrogation had become something completely different from what he had intended. Agent Kaiwan was not trying to get information from the prisoner. He was not building a case for prosecution. He was having what appeared to be a professional consultation about a situation that neither of them had fully explained. The timeline is accelerating, Minji said. They are moving faster than the original intelligence suggested. How much faster? At least 6 hours, maybe more. That does not give us much room for error. Taehyun felt like he was listening to a conversation, in a language he almost but not quite understood. Who is moving faster? What timeline? What are you talking about? Kiwon looked at him with something that might have been sympathy. Commander, have you ever been in a situation where you knew something bad was going to happen but you could not prove it until after it was too late? Of course. That is basic security work. Now imagine that you had the ability to prevent the bad thing from happening, but only if you positioned yourself correctly before anyone else realized there was a problem. I would position myself correctly, even if it meant putting yourself in a situation that looked suspicious to people who did not understand what you were doing. Taehyun looked at Minji. She was sitting calmly in her chair with her hands still locked in energy cuffs, but her posture and expression suggested that she was exactly where she wanted to be. You are not really a prisoner, are you? I am sitting in a detention cell with my hands restrained. What would you call that? I would call it someone who chose to be here for reasons that have nothing to do with the charges against her. What charges? No one has charged me with anything. Before Taehyun could respond, his communicator buzzed with an emergency alert. All senior staff were being called to an immediate security briefing. Something significant was happening, and Admiral A. Jiwon wanted everyone to understand what they were dealing with. Agent Kiwon, I want you to come with me. We need to discuss what your people are really doing on my station. Our people are not doing anything that violates station regulations. That is not what I am worried about. The security briefing room was filled with department heads from every major system on the station: engineering, communications, traffic control, medical. Everyone looked confused and concerned because no one could identify exactly what the problem was. Admiral Jiwon stood at the front of the room with a display showing station-wide activity patterns. In the past 3 days, we have had an unusual increase in human visitors, all properly documented, all following regulations, all conducting what appears to be legitimate business. But when we look at their activities as a group, we see patterns that suggest coordinated planning for some kind of operation. She activated the display showing the locations where humans had taken quarters. They have positioned themselves to provide coverage of all critical station systems. They have purchased supplies that could be used for emergency operations. They have been conducting encrypted communications on frequencies that suggest access to military and intelligence networks. Communications Officer Nari added her report. The message traffic has been consistent and precisely timed. This suggests they are operating under some kind of coordinated plan with specific objectives and timelines. Chief Jae-hoon presented his security analysis. We have monitored their movements and activities continuously. They are not breaking any laws. They are not threatening anyone. They are not displaying any hostile behavior. But they are definitely preparing for something. What kind of something? Asked the chief engineer. Agent Kiwon had been listening quietly, but now he spoke up. Admiral, with your permission, I would like to explain what is actually happening here. Please do. 3 weeks ago, Earth Intelligence Services received information about a possible terrorist operation targeting this station. The intelligence was not specific enough to justify official military intervention, it was not reliable enough to share with local authorities, but it was serious enough to require preventive action. The room went completely silent. Admiral Jiwon felt like she was finally getting answers to questions she had been asking for days. What kind of terrorist operation? A plan to destroy Kepler 7 station and blame the attack on human extremists. The goal would be to create a crisis that would justify military action against Earth colonies. The people you have been monitoring are not preparing to attack your station. They are preparing to defend it. Who are they? They are people who specialize in preventing disasters that cannot be stopped through normal channels. They operate independently of official military and intelligence structures because sometimes the most effective response to a crisis is the one that nobody recognizes as a response. Commander Taehyun looked confused. Are you talking about the woman we have in detention? Minji is here because this is where she needs to be when the attack begins. The safest place for someone with her skills is inside the facility that needs to be protected. When will the attack begin? Soon. The terrorist cell has been monitoring station security and waiting for the right opportunity. They do not know that their operation has been compromised. They do not know that their targets are already protected. Admiral Jiwon made a decision that would define the rest of her career. Agent Kiwon, I am going to trust that you are telling me the truth. What do you need from us? The first sign that something was changing came from the maintenance levels. Chief Engineer Byung was doing routine inspections when he found equipment that had not been there the day before. Small devices attached to power conduits and communication lines. They looked like standard monitoring equipment, but they were not listed in any work orders or installation schedules. Security to Engineering Level 7, he called over his communicator. I need someone to look at some unauthorized equipment. But when Security Officer Yuna arrived, the devices were gone. The attachment points showed they had been there recently, but whoever had installed them had also removed them. Chief, are you sure about what you saw? I am sure. Someone has been accessing our infrastructure systems without authorization. On the command level, Admiral Jiwon was watching her displays when several alerts appeared simultaneously. Power fluctuations in the residential areas, communication disruptions on civilian frequencies, traffic control anomalies in the docking bays. Individually, these problems were minor. Together, they suggested that someone was testing the station's systems. Nari, are you seeing any increase in human communication traffic? Actually, Admiral, the human communications have stopped completely. All frequencies are silent. This was more disturbing than increased activity. It suggested that whatever the humans had been planning was now beginning. Alert all departments. Elevated security status. I want every system monitored continuously. In the detention center, Commander Tae-hyun was discovering that his prisoner had become even more mysterious than before. Minji was sitting in her chair, with her eyes closed. She appeared to be listening to something that he could not hear. Her breathing was slow and steady like someone in deep meditation. What is she doing? He asked Agent Kiwon. She is working. How can she be working? She is locked in a detention cell. The most important work does not always require moving around. Before Tae-hyun could ask what that meant, the lights in the detention center flickered. Emergency power. Systems activated automatically. Backup communication systems came online. The station was switching to crisis management protocols. What is happening? Tae-hyun demanded. Minji opened her eyes. It is starting. 6 levels above them, a man who called himself Do-hyun was having coffee in a civilian restaurant when his personal communicator vibrated once. The signal meant that the operation was beginning. He finished his coffee, paid his bill, and walked to a maintenance access panel that most people never noticed. His credentials opened the panel even though his visitor registration listed him as a farmer. 2 levels below, Hyuk was pretending to read news reports on a public terminal when he received the same signal. He stood up and walked to a supply closet that should have been locked. Inside were tools and equipment that he had positioned there over the past 2 days. items that would let him access systems that were supposed to be secure. Throughout the station, other humans were receiving the same alert and moving to positions they had prepared. They moved casually like people who were simply going about their daily business. But they were converging on critical locations with precise timing that suggested extensive coordination. In the communications center, Nari was watching her displays when impossible things began happening. Transmissions that had been encrypted became readable. Network connections that had been hidden became visible. Communication channels that she had not known existed suddenly appeared on her monitoring systems. Admiral, I am detecting multiple unauthorized communication networks operating throughout the station. They are using frequencies and routing systems that should not be accessible to civilian equipment. Are they interfering with our operations? No, Admiral. They appear to be supplementing our systems. Communication coverage is actually improving. Admiral Jiwan felt like she was watching a chess game where she could only see half the board. The humans were clearly implementing some kind of coordinated plan, but their actions seemed designed to help rather than harm the station. Show me security footage from all major access points. The displays showed normal activity in most areas, but careful examination revealed patterns that had not been there before. Humans were positioned at key locations throughout the station. They were not blocking access or restricting movement. They were simply present in places where they could observe and respond to unusual activity. In the maintenance levels, something else was happening that most of the station population would never know about. A group of 4 individuals who were not human had been moving through the infrastructure systems for several hours. They carried equipment designed to overload power distribution systems and destroy communication networks. Their plan was to create cascading failures that would cripple the station and kill thousands of people. But when they reached their first target location, they found that someone was waiting for them. The person appeared to be a maintenance worker, doing routine repairs. She looked up when they approached and smiled politely. "Excuse me, but this area is restricted during system maintenance. You will need to use the alternate route." The leader of the group tried to push past her but discovered that the narrow corridor was blocked by equipment that had not been there an hour earlier. The alternate route she had suggested would take them away from their target systems. "Move this equipment immediately." "I am sorry, but I cannot do that without proper authorization. Station safety regulations require that all maintenance work be completed before the area can be reopened." While they were arguing, 2 other maintenance workers appeared from different directions. Suddenly, the 4 intruders were surrounded by people who looked harmless, but were positioned in ways that made escape difficult. Similar confrontations were happening throughout the station's infrastructure. Every target location that the terrorist cell had planned to attack was occupied by humans conducting what appeared to be routine maintenance work, but the timing was too perfect to be coincidental. In the security center, Chief Jae-hoon was receiving reports that made no sense. "Sir, we have multiple reports of unauthorized personnel in restricted areas. But when security teams respond, they find only maintenance workers with proper credentials." "What kind of maintenance?" "Emergency repairs to systems that were not reported as damaged. Safety inspections of equipment that was inspected last week. Routine cleaning of areas that were cleaned yesterday." Admiral Jiwan was beginning to understand what Agent Kaiwan had meant about preventing disasters through actions that looked innocent to outside observers. "Are any of these maintenance activities actually necessary?" "That is what makes this strange. Every repair they are doing needs to be done. Every system they are inspecting has minor problems that our regular crews had not detected yet. Every area they are cleaning has contamination that could have caused equipment failures, so they are fixing problems that we did not know we had." "Yes, Admiral." In her detention cell, Minji was listening to reports that were being transmitted through communication channels that officially did not exist. The terrorist operation was being systematically dismantled by people who appeared to be doing completely unrelated work. Every attack point was neutralized. Every escape route was blocked. Every piece of equipment was disabled. Most importantly, it was all happening in ways that would never be traced back to any official security operation. Agent Kiwan she said quietly. "You can tell Commander Tae-hyun that the situation has been resolved." "What situation?" Tae-hyun demanded. "What has been resolved?" "The terrorist cell that was planning to destroy this station has been prevented from carrying out their operation. The evidence has been collected and turned over to appropriate authorities. The threat no longer exists." "How do you know this?" "Because preventing threats is what we do." 6 hours later, the emergency alerts were canceled. Station operations returned to normal. The power fluctuations and communication disruptions were explained as routine maintenance issues that had been quickly resolved. The unauthorized personnel reports were filed as administrative errors caused by scheduling conflicts between different maintenance crews. The humans who had arrived over the past few days began departing as casually as they had arrived. Their business was completed. Their ships left on different schedules and headed toward different destinations. Within 48 hours, the only evidence that anything unusual had happened was a brief entry in the station security log noting increased human activity during a routine maintenance period. Commander Tae-hyun found himself standing in an empty detention cell. The energy cuffs had been unlocked and placed neatly on the table. The prisoner was gone, but the door had never been opened. Security footage showed nothing unusual. One moment she was sitting in the chair, and the next moment, the cell was empty. On his desk was a business card. "Minji, problem solver, available for consultation." Below that was a communication code that would probably work exactly once. Agent Kaiwan found him staring at the card an hour later. "She does that sometimes. Most people find it disturbing." Where did she go? Probably back to whatever she was doing before this situation developed. The 7 stars do not stay in one place for very long. Will I see her again? Only if you have a problem that cannot be solved through normal channels.